C-Bus.
Hey, there's one thing I wanted to mention when you're getting ready to dig on a project like this, is that keep in mind, make sure you call the OOPS marking utility service before you start anything. If there's one thing I've learned in projects like this, there's always surprises. Almost every single time I go to dig, I come up with some sort of surprise, either tree roots or unexpected cable line, or possibly something that doesn't get marked. Is like the downspout drains for the house, independent power lines that might go to sheds or garages, something like that. Maybe think about this little footnote when I started digging here, so you can notice that we have had the power lines and everything marked. Obviously, you can see the flags running to the electrical box. You can see the orange flags mark your cable and phone line. Now, when I did start digging this, the first scoop, I was like literally the first scoop that I put the hoe into the ground, there's a line right here. So I'm like, what's going on with that, you know? And I check it out, because the cable line isn't marked over there. Cable line's marked over here, and it runs up to the house right over that way. Well, then it occurred to me, all the new cable lines are orange. That's a black one, so I'm sure it's an old unactive line, so then I'm not too worried. But be sure you get everything marked, because if you start this project, I guarantee you'll have some problems if you don't. I always come up with surprises. I always mark them. Also, keep in mind that the utility companies, their markings are not always accurate. Sometimes, you know, they'll be marked right here, but the utility might be over 6 inches or so. But that being said, don't expect the utilities to be marked exactly. So when you get within about 24 inches of those lines, dig by hand and dig carefully. Now, I've made it down to my trench, and I actually decided to dig a little bit deeper, so I'm digging this first part about 16 inches deep through here instead of 12, just to give myself a little extra drainage, a little more space for gravel and topsoil on the end. Now, as you notice, when I'm digging a trench with our backhoe unit, I don't try to take great big scrapes or big scoops out of the dirt at once. And the reason I do that is, for one, I like to scrape the sod off and put it off to one side generally. Here, there's not very thick sod, but I like to do that because sod doesn't grade or compact very well. So what we normally do is set it off to the side. We get rid of the sod when the project's done. Then I'll put the dirt that I'm digging out on the other side. What's nice about a hoe instead of a trencher is that I can put the dirt farther away. So if I want to come back to this trench and dig it deeper or make adjustments, I can simply drive my tractor over the top of the straddle of the trench and get back here and start digging again. With a trencher, it'll put all your dirt just off to one side. It's nice because it pulverizes the soil when it does that, and it makes it really easy to push the dirt back in and do your finish grading and your seeding that way. However, once you've trenched it like that, it's really tough to get back to that spot if you want to trench deeper or do any adjustments. This way, I put my dirt farther off to the side. It takes a little bit longer, but it's nice if I need to come back and dig it deeper or make an adjustment. So we're back with the next update. Yesterday, I finished digging the trench for my French drain system. Today, I'm going to go ahead and put in the gravel and the pipe and the catch basin. So first thing I'm going to do in this situation, well, actually, first thing I've already done is I verified yesterday that my trench was at the proper grade. Yesterday I showed you the laser level device and the laser level. I could verify that the bottom of my trench was at a downhill slope from the top of the trench all the way to the spot where the water expels at the bottom. So I just went through the trench, and I could move my adjuster up and down to tell if it was deeper or shallower. Based on my preliminary measurements that we talked about earlier, you could see that I pretty much knew how deep to dig the trench. Now I've got the trench done. Of course, it seems to happen to me every time. It poured down rain last night. That's a bad thing because it makes your trench all muddy. But in this situation, it also helps to verify that my trench is graded properly. So let's take a look at the trench before we go anywhere else. You'll find there'll be a couple pockets here and there where the trench might hold a little bit of water, but in general, it's graded downhill. Here you can see it's holding about an inch of water, and that's only because there's a high spot right here in this section. That's not really going to be a big deal to me because I am going to put about 3 inches or 4 inches of gravel in the bottom of the trench to grade my pipe. You do, however, want to make sure that your trench is graded really well downhill. That way you don't have 3-4 inches of water sitting in the bottom of the trench. On a French drain system, the trench actually holds the water and also facilitates the water draining the right direction into the pipe. So you want to make sure your grade is accurate. Let's take a look at what we had to deal with. Keep in mind, I did mention that you want to mark utilities. In this situation, there's some things that utility companies won't mark, and I'll show you what those are. Even though we marked all the utilities here, you'll find that we dug carefully, but we still hit a cable line right here. So we repaired that. If you look in this trench, it's not holding any water. Look down through here, the trench is not holding any water. Right in this spot, my trench is holding water. This spot, however, is intentionally low because this is my lowest spot where all the water is going to accumulate before it gets down to the expulsion area. So basically in the wet part of the yard, this is the lowest spot. So this is where my primary catch basin is going to be. So I've dug it slightly deeper, and that's why it's holding some water. This cable line we found, they did not mark it because it's an old line. So we used a metal detector and we found this cable line and marked it ourselves. Now, down through here we had a little bit of an issue because this is the gas line and this is a downspout pipe. So luckily we took our metal detector through this whole area before we started doing our trenching. Because they used an aluminum caution tape above the glass line, we were able to know that there was something down there to avoid. Now the reason that the utility companies did not mark this is because we're in a rural community. This is a private gas line that goes to a private propane tank within the neighborhood. Since it's not connected to municipal utilities, they did not mark the line when they came out. It was a bit of a surprise to me, so it was a really good thing we used our metal detector before we went down through here to trench. Downspouts are a normal thing that you would not be able to find when you're trenching. You just pretty much have to guess for their location. It's really common that through these projects you'll end up having to do a downspout repair or a couple of them, because as you trench, usually by the time you find it, it's too late. So here's another downspout pipe that we found. And this downspout pipe also, we're pretty lucky. We dig very carefully, so we found it before we broke it also. Like I said, usually we'll break at least one downspout pipe in this type of project. This area here is where the main drain goes for the whole neighborhood. So these are all the storm sewer drains for all the neighborhood's houses. This is their tap. So that's where we're going into. Now what you'll see is after I dug this trench, I knew there was going to be a lot of water because they forecasted rain. So I didn't dig the last 4 feet before I got to here. In this area right here, I did that just this morning. That way, when I came this morning, the water from the last downspout pipe was completely full in the trench, about 50 feet up through there because of the storm. So what I did is I dug this part. I dug this section out, and then I put this grate in here. That way it filtered out any of the muck. And I cut this hole in the main pipe, and that's where we're going to tap in. We're going to run our pipe right into here. And then I sat this grate in here, so when I released the water, that extra grate right there filtered out most of the big chunks of sediment and mud as the water drained out of my trench. So now we're ready to go ahead and start putting the actual drainage system in. That we've got the trench done.